Hey everyone, welcome to Movie Watch. I'm your watcher Steve, and today I will be giving you my review of House of the Dragon Episode 1. Just as a warning, there will be spoilers in this review, as I will be taking you through the events of the episode and will be giving you my thoughts throughout. So let's get started. House of the Dragon is a prequel to the HBO smash hit Game of Thrones. It is a fantasy story based on the A Song of Ice and Fire book series written by George R.R. Martin. Set 172 years before the events of the original series, House of the Dragon surrounds the Targaryen family, dragon riders and rulers of the Seven Kingdoms of Westeros. The story of House of the Dragon begins at the end of King Jaehaerys' reign, with an election for his successor being performed in order to prevent the ruin of House Targaryen, as King Jaehaerys knew that the only thing that could tear down the House of the Dragon was itself. It's decided that Viserys, the oldest male descendant of Jaehaerys, will succeed him as king. Now, 9 years into Viserys' reign, we open high in the clouds with stunning visuals of Rhaenyra, King Viserys' daughter, riding her dragon Syrax above the city of King's Landing to a score from the original series, and this creates a feeling of nostalgia for the audience. Alicent, Princess Rhaenyra's best friend and daughter to the Hand of the King, greets Rhaenyra as she lands. They both return to the Red Keep with various familiar shots of the city, which allows the audience to feel quite at home in the story. Rhaenyra visits her pregnant mother, Aemma. She worries that no one is looking after her and that everyone is only concerned about the baby inside her. Rhaenyra tells her mother she would prefer to wear armor and fight on a battlefield than give birth. Her mother replies that this is how we, meaning women, serve the realm, and that the childbed is their battlefield, which showcases how women are viewed and how deeply ingrained the traditions are in their society. We then move to a small council meeting where the group talk about various things, such as a man calling himself the Crab Feeder, who is threatening the kingdom's shipping lanes, as well as how Prince Daemon has been refitting the City Watch to his new position as commander of the City Watch. I couldn't help but think of Robert Baratheon in this scene, as King Viserys is very much like him in that he would rather talk about his plans for a tournament to celebrate the birth of his future son than the important issues at hand, such as his trade routes being threatened. Moving on, we find Prince Daemon has returned to the Red Keep and is sitting on the Iron Throne, which we see is made up of many more swords than in the era of Game of Thrones. Obviously, the throne must change with time and different rulers. Daemon and Rhaenyra discuss the upcoming birth and how he will be replaced as heir to Viserys. It's quite clear Daemon doesn't much like the topic at hand. The two speak in High Valyrian, and I must say it's great to hear the language again. Daemon then gives Rhaenyra a Valyrian steel necklace so that she now owns a small piece of their ancestry too. The two obviously have a liking for one another, as it's quite obvious from their interaction. There's then a short scene with Rhaenyra and Alicent Hightower studying beneath a weirwood tree. Rhaenyra is quite bored of the study though, and is more focused on her mother, worrying about her. It's a quick scene, but it shows how close the two are, while also managing to show that Rhaenyra is more intelligent than perceived. In the next scene, we go back to Viserys, who has an infected cut from the Iron Throne on his back, which the maesters proceed to cauterize. Apparently there is a saying that the Iron Throne rejects those that are unworthy. Perhaps the throne is rejecting him. Viserys then goes to see his wife, who is having a bath. He tells her he had a vision of his son being born wearing an iron crown. He's quite clearly excited to have a son. However, his wife warns him that this is the last time she will give birth. She cannot stand any more miscarriages. The pair have suffered through 5, and she cannot bear it anymore. It is a somewhat heartbreaking scene. Aemma's devotion to her husband is obvious, and she has tried her utmost to provide him with what he wishes, but sadly a daughter is not enough for him. The scene ends with Aemma apologizing for failing in her duty to provide him with a male heir. We cut to Daemon, the current heir, commanding the Gold Cloaks. He says to his men that his brother's city has fallen into squalor and leads them into the city. Daemon and his men attack the lawbreakers, cutting off hands and other appendages. The scene definitely lives up to the violence and brutality of Game of Thrones, and it portrays Daemon to be an intense and unforgiving man. At the next small council meeting the next day, Daemon is in attendance for the first time in an age. They talk about his brutality, but he argues that his city should be safe for all their people, including the poor. The king's hand, Otto Hightower, argues with Daemon. The dislike between the two is obvious. The king protects his brother, revealing the soft spot he has for him. And later that night, we find Daemon in a brothel. He worries about his position and the king replacing him. It appears that he is more complex than first thought. It seems that the character has many layers. The next day is the first day of the tournament for the king's son, and it is announced that Aemma the queen has started her labours. We witness a man by the name of Sir Criston Cole unhorse a Baratheon in a joust, and then Prince Daemon picks his first opponent. He chooses Otto Hightower's eldest son and heir, Dwayne Hightower, and proceeds to beat the son by aiming for his horse's legs, causing the man to be thrown from his horse. Apparently this isn't enough of an insult to the hand of the king though, as he then rubs Otto's nose in it further by asking for his daughter's favour. Daemon then takes his mark to joust Sir Criston Cole. The king receives news about his wife, and he rushes to be by her side. He finds that the baby has not turned downwards, and the labour isn't going as planned. The king has to make an impossible choice, to sacrifice one or lose them both. He decides to keep the child and sacrifice his wife, his lust for an heir overpowering his love for his wife. The maces begin to make an incision in Queen Aemma. This is the most intense scene of the episode. Queen Aemma's wails, along with the penetrating imagery of the bloody birth, pierced the hearts of all who watched. Daemon simultaneously struggles for victory over Sir Criston Cole in flashes of battle. The tone of the somber music turned bright briefly as he appears victorious and the birth of the king's son shown to be a success, only to once again become somber, as Daemon loses his battle and the king loses his wife, and sadly hours later, his son. The emotion is palpable as the Targaryens mourn their queen and prince. The king in this scene is quite clearly nothing more than a husband and a father, grief-stricken and lost for words, who cannot bear to say goodbye to his wife and son, relying on his only child, a woman, to do what he cannot. Rhaenyra steps up to the plate to fill her dead brother's shoes, knowing that she will never be able to satiate her father's desire for a male heir, and with the famous words Dracarys, executed in a way we've never heard before, full of melancholy, we say goodbye to Queen Aemma and Prince Baelon, wife and mother, brother and son, as the vultures begin to circle. Hours later, and in poor taste, the king is called to a meeting with a small council to discuss the line of succession, now that he doesn't have a male heir to succeed him. With the council bickering and no one agreeing on anything, the king becomes angry and storms out. This doesn't stop Otto Hightower, his hand, who I think is the most cunning of them all, from conspiring away. He sends his daughter to see the king at a late hour with hopes of creating a bond between the two. Alicent and Viserys talk about their shared experience in losing loved ones, and it seems like Otto's plan works quite well. The next day, after quite a memorable speech in a brothel, Daemon is brought before his brother the king and is questioned. It was reported that Daemon proclaimed Baelon, the king's dead son, the heir for a day. After admitting that the rumour was true, Daemon tells the king that he is weak and cannot see he is being used by those around him. Viserys relinquishes Daemon as his heir and places Rhaenyra in his stead. Daemon is ordered by the king back to Runestone to be with his wife. After Daemon leaves, the king's left hand is cut by the Iron Throne, showing once more how it rejects those that it deems unworthy. Later that same day, Viserys meets Rhaenyra in the crypt next to the skull of Balerion the Dread, the biggest of all the dragons, where he declares that she will be his heir henceforth and passes on to her vital information. Here we find out new details to the overall story of House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones, that the Targaryens did not come to Westeros to conquer alone, but to unite the Seven Kingdoms and lead them against the storms of a terrible winter that would descend from the distant north. Viserys tells Rhaenyra that Aegon the Conqueror had a vision in a dream, which he called the Song of Ice and Fire, which was passed from king to heir of each age, that warned them that a Targaryen must unite the Seven Kingdoms to lead them against the coming darkness, or the world of men would surely end. We finished the episode here, with all the houses of Westeros pledging their fealty to Rhaenyra after the proclamation that she is to be Viserys' heir. I think it's obvious to say that you cannot watch House of the Dragon and not compare it to Game of Thrones. That being said, the creators of the show have quite clearly set out to make House of the Dragon its own thing, and so far, I think they are doing a great job of that. Yes, I watched it and compared it to Game of Thrones, but you know what? I thought it compared really well. The visuals were excellent and the story is compelling. The themes of gender and duty shone throughout this one. Pilot episodes aren't easy to do. You could argue that the show had a head start because it didn't have to world build as much as others, but I actually think the opposite. I think we all went into this show with very high expectations. Not only did House of the Dragon have to live up to the standards of Game of Thrones, but it also had to bring back the audiences that weren't so keen on the ending of the original series, and that's no easy feat. I think this first episode did exactly what it needed to do. After all, I was left wanting more. As I said, the visuals were excellent, but it didn't just rely on those the whole way through either. The cast were great. Each one of them had a moment to shine. I think Matt Smith as Prince Daemon and Millie Alcock as Princess Rhaenyra especially nailed their roles. The score was awesome, and most importantly, the brutality of the world of Westeros remained. If that wasn't there, I don't think they would be able to pull it off. I think that's why the first show did so well. House of the Dragon had a lot riding on the first episode, and I think they nailed it. We felt nostalgia for the first show. The episode was filled with juicy Easter eggs. The story is being built well without feeling dull so far, and it doesn't just feel like more of the same crap. I think the creators have done well. They're continuing to build on the story of Game of Thrones, but they're also succeeding in making the show its own thing. I'm excited to see where it goes from here. I know the story already, but I'm sure it's not going to be exactly the same as the book. I'll definitely be tuning in to the rest of the season, and I hope you all do too. I hope you enjoyed my review of House of the Dragon Episode 1. If you want to hear my thoughts on the rest of the series, as well as other shows and movies, or if you like movie and TV show trivia, then please subscribe. But that's it from me this time, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.